So I tried to think of a fun, not necessarily fun, but a creative way to open this podcast earlier today. And I had a really hard time doing it because the only feelings I'm thinking most of today is I'd like to say it's sadness, but it's not. It's anger. But I think that's the feeling of most A's fans right now. And there's a lot of emotions going on that are fueling that anger. But and we're going to get into all that today on this episode. But, first off, Julio, I think we owe it to listeners to tell them, we did have a full free agency podcast planned that we are going to record tonight, Tuesday, January 26th, to be released on Wednesday, January 27th. So that because a lot of deals happened in the past week and a half, and we felt like our listeners should hear about them. This was not part of that. And then we got this news that Marcus Semien signs a 1-year, $18 million deal with the Blue Jays. And, we texted back and forth and we decided we're going to throw that rundown out and let's just do an emergency reaction pod because I can't even wrap my head around talking about Corey Kluber signing with the Yankees. You know what I mean?
Well, you let it off with anger. And I just had to drop this old quote on you.
Yeah.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
I just watched that movie this past
It's
weekend.
still, it's pretty tight still. But honestly, let's fucking. I think we're gonna. Here's ready. I was thinking of what we want to name this episode beforehand too.
Yeah. What'd you think?
And I think this episode's just gonna be called "Sorry for the Language, Mom," because it's not gonna be a fun episode. It's gonna be therapeutic. We're gonna be able to vent because fuck.
Yeah.
But. Well, I'll promise you guys. Yeah, the next episode we're gonna have a full breakdown of everything that we missed last couple weeks.
Yeah, that'll come.
There is some A's news that happened besides the free agents leaving that we're gonna go a little more into. But we're just gonna be talking about the news of the day. And if you were living under a rock, which in 2021 with everything going on in the world, good for you. You deserve to live under a rock right now because it's probably the best. Marcus Semien has left the Oakland Athletics, and he is going to be joining the Toronto Blue Jays on a 1-year, $18 million deal. The knife was in, and then it twisted a little bit more, literally a couple hours later, where it was announced that Tommy Stella is in the final talks of joining our hated rival San Francisco Giants. No specifics on the money, but Yahoo Sports has said that this is going to be a 3-year deal. This goes on top of what we already knew for a couple weeks, and we knew he wasn't going to be coming back anyways, with Liam Hendriks joining the Chicago White Sox for 3 years and $54 million. Yeah, sucks.
And again, I want to reiterate that another podcast will be coming out later this week or at the end of the week, likely Monday. And that will be a traditional town tailgate podcast. We'll talk about free agency. We'll talk about the Billy Bean ownership group not buying the Red Sox. So that's a big one. Talk about all that shit. This is going to be, this podcast is not going to be just all bitching. It's going to be analysis, where the team goes from here, what the future looks like, all that stuff. Anyway, so the first thing I do want to say is to Giants fans who have been texting me all day, I understand that you are texting me to find out what my reaction is. And this is for all you Giants fans out there who are texting your A's friends. I understand that your point, for lack of a better word, of sending that text message is to get my reaction and find out how I'm feeling. I get it. But the last thing I want to hear from, and I'm willing to do that, I will vent to you and you can hear all about how I feel about Marcus Semien not coming back to the A's. But the last thing that I want to hear from you is you shitting on how I feel. Don't tell me that he wasn't that good of a player. Don't tell me to get over it and this is classic A's. You should have seen this coming. Don't tell me that. That's not what I want to hear. This is the last thing I want to hear. Okay? If you want to text me to get my reaction and shut the fuck up and go fuck off. Do not antagonize me and bother me and talk shit to me and tell me that I'm feeling irrational. No, that's not what I want to hear. I just don't want to talk to you if that's what's going to be. So please stop doing that. My Uncle Mike, shout out. He did not do that. He was nice. He was a good person. He was supportive. And he just wanted to see how I was feeling. That's it. That's how you should react. Anyway. Moving on. I mean,
who was texting you? Who was trying to fuck? Like,
I have like 4 Giants fans who were texting me. And
this sounds like, very Adrice.
You should have, dude. No, it wasn't Adrice.
Okay,
like, dude, you should have seen this coming. It's like, shut up. And my response, like to one of them, was like, it just sucks to lose a once in a generation player to a salary like that we could match. And that person. Calm down. He's not a once in a generation player. He had 2 good years. I don't want to hear that. Like, just let me give you what you intended to. But if you intended to,
you know what you should have shot back at them. You know what you should have shot back at them. Brandon Crawford's not that good. Brandon Crawford's never been that good.
It's true, but I just stopped texting because I just didn't care. it was what it was. So I think the thing that we need to unpack first is the amount. Because it wasn't like this is a massive commitment of $100 million for 6 years. And John Fisher, you can say whatever you want about how the pandemic is handling your businesses. Okay, we get it. But you're telling me you couldn't afford 1 year for $18 million. That's the thing that I don't understand. That's the thing that we can't wrap our heads around, right, Julio? I mean, it's just...
Well, if you want to, play this game, Chris Davis's contract extension was 2 years, $33 million.
Yeah.
The money's there. The money is in this organization. That's what kind of makes this hurt so much more is we've seen the A's kind of do that 1 year big deal just to bring somebody in or like retain him. And this is the year to do it. This is the year to do it where I guaranteed Marcus would have taken 1 year, $14 million. Guaranteed. Absolutely. And at the end of the day, as obviously I would have loved for him to be here, he's going to a stacked Jays roster right now. And they're saying he's probably not even going to be shortstop. It's going to be
play second,
BGO,
right?
And he's going to be playing second.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this might hurt him. We haven't talked about it too much. I texted you earlier about it, but the 2022 shortstop free agency class is insane. It's going to be Carlos Correa. It's going to be Corey Seager. It's going to be Trevor Story. I believe Francisco Lindor as well. I'll have to double check that real quick. I don't think he signed like an immediate.
He hasn't been extended yet.
Yeah, he has. I know he signed an arbitration deal with the Mets.
For all we know, he could.
Yeah, but it's a huge gamble for himself, which is like, hell yeah, go for it. It's just so annoying, especially when you see the other deals that went around baseball for shortstop. We talked about the possibility of Andrelton Simmons coming to Oakland. Like, oh yeah, he'll probably take a pretty cheap deal. Lindor's got 1 year, $22 million next year. He'll be a free agent. It's like, cool. We might be able to get Andrelton Simmons for cheap. Well, we can't because he went to the Twins for $10.5 million.
Yeah.
They said, okay, Freddie, this is what's real. Oh my God. Freddie Galvez went to the Orioles. He's not a great shortstop. He's not even good. I would say he's pretty average.
Yeah.
Right? He signed a 1 year deal with the Orioles. Chris, can you tell me how much he signed for?
I'm going to guess $6 million.
1.5 million.
Oh my God.
Why the fuck could you have not even made an effort? If you're not willing to pay 18 million, I get it. It sucks as much as I love Marcus and He deserves that money. If you don't want to pay as an organization right now with everything that's happening, cool.
Yeah.
Well, save $8 million. Go get somebody who's not as good offensively, but is a wizard at shortstop and Simmons. Okay, well, if you don't want to pay that, here's somebody who's $1.5 million, who's been a pretty sustainable shortstop in the bigs. No, you don't. You didn't do it.
I'm convinced that they think that they have set that in house. Like they think that they could put Pinder and Kemp at short and second, and it'll be fine. But it's not even about that, dude. It's about the leadership in the clubhouse. It's about the defensive, like at least in Marcus's aspect, the defensive presence he brings on the field. And for Stella, like the dude that doesn't strike out, like him sitting at this 2-hole right above Chapman at 3, like that there's value there that like they're just not seeing, or that they think that they can get elsewhere. And I know a lot, like Robbie Schlatter had a conversation with us earlier, and he said, like, you guys will find talent in house. You always do. Our farm system is depleted right now. There is not much going on there. So like I know that the old thinking is that like, oh, we'll be fine, next man up. But like I don't know where the next man up's coming from, because normally in order to get the next man up, we're trading away guys to get these deals. But these guys just walked. We didn't trade them. They just walked.
Yeah,
so,
they're
sorry, 1 second. Just offensively,
yeah, go for it.
Heavily reliant on Olsen and Chapman coming into the season now, and that is not fair pressure on them.
Yeah, it's not fair pressure where Oli, his power was there last year, but his average was pretty bad. I don't think he'll hit that low over a full year. Matt Chapman's coming off a hip injury.
Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't until you said having Semien and Stella at the top of the lineup, dude, we got to find a new lineup at the top. Ramon's going to be hitting leadoff, or he's going to be hitting in the 2-hole, but who the hell is going to hit in that other spot? Well, you're going to put Chappie there and then rely on Canna being the 3 or 4?
That's the huge question.
So really, okay. So I asked this to our good friend. You'll hear from him a little bit later, Xavier. We kind of know how we feel about it. How does this feel compared to other years where 14 was pretty infamous when they traded Josh Donaldson, Brandon Moss, Derek Norris, John Lester for fuck that guy, but he left in the offseason. 2006, where they lost Barry Zito, Frank Thomas on that 1-year deal. Nick Swisher, and I think Nick Swisher is still there, but it was a pretty big turnover. And of course, the 2004 season when they traded Hudson and Mulder. Like, how do you feel compared to this? Because this seems kind of like the worst.
The worst like weekend of my A's fan life was the weekend Josh Donaldson, Brandon Moss, and Derek Norris all got traded in the same weekend. I believe the same weekend. If not, it was like 5 days, within 5 days. And I remember exactly where I was when I heard the news of Josh Donaldson. I was sitting at Okawa in Antioch having dinner with my parents, my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin. And I check my phone and I get an ESPN update that Josh Donaldson would be traded to the Blue Jays. And it just it was the beginning of dinner, and it completely ruined the vibe of the entire dinner. We were all just fucking bummed. And then the next day, Brandon Moss moves. And then a couple days later, Derek Norris moves. And it's just like, that's what today felt like. It felt like it was them cleaning house and starting over. Now, whether that is the case or not, who knows? Like, I'm sure that they're going to try and run it back with these guys. They already agreed on arbitration with most of them. So I'm sure that this is going to be the team that we're moving forward with some guys in house. Like I said, Pinder or Tony Kemp, or one of these guys in AAA who might be ready to come up, Nick Allen or something like that, filling the hole. But I would say that we'd be lucky to make the wild card game after this. Like, we're definitely not walking away with the West, which is what I thought we were going to be doing going into the season if we brought those two guys back. I don't know. I mean, it affects everything. It also it's a very clear. The biggest thing to me is it's a very clear sign to our two stars, Matt Chapman and Matt Olson, the Matt brothers, that this team has no intention on going long term with them. So in 3 years or 2 years now, when their contracts are up, you better start getting your agents, start talking to teams because the A's aren't going to be re-signing you. And that's the thing that sucks the most. So when is the reset button going to happen? When is Billy Beane going to pull a 2014 and sell everything? Is that going to be this offseason? Is this a sign of that? Is that going to be next offseason when they ultimately disappoint? I'm telling you right now, A's fans. And I will, if I'm wrong, I will shotgun a beer and take a shot back to back on this podcast and gladly admit I'm wrong after that. But I'm telling you right now, A's fans, prepare for another disappointing season.
Yeah, it's this feels okay. It's weird that you said that you're at Okawa. First of all, shout out to Okawa, fine Japanese cuisine restaurant located in Antioch, California.
Antioch Classic right there.
Antioch Classic. That's off of Sunset, correct?
To be honest with you, I can't remember the street. It's right next to
it's by the old Straw Hat. Yes, I think that's Sunset. Anyways, yeah, shout out. Great Antioch institution. Go there and support small business. It's funny that you said that you were there because I'm pretty sure the day I found out that Josh Donaldson got traded, I was also eating Japanese food. I was at Orange Roll Sushi in Anaheim back when I was still working at Disneyland.
Yeah,
with Ann Whitney, my brother Elias, my sister-in-law Jennifer, and it was we had the same reaction.
Dinner too,
yeah, it was the same reaction, and it's funny because Elias, he was just like, oh, whatever. We're used to this.
Yeah.
The recency bias, obviously. When like Josh Johnson got traded, it's like, all right, well, they're getting back Brendan Lowry.
That one hurt. That one's probably the one that hurt the most.
It's like, okay, we're gonna have somebody who's like Brett Lowry. I say Brendan Lowry, whatever. Who's going to be filling in at third?
Do you really want Brandon Lau to play for the A's now?
Yeah, I should.
Subconsciously.
And then when they lost Hudson Mulder, with the Mulder trade, they got back Dan Herron, and then the Hudson trade was just not a good trade overall.
Yeah.
It's harder to replace the middle of your infield. No matter who you have ready right now. Like to go up and to like, all right, well, the path is cleared. The path is not cleared. Nick Allen, as much as like we're really high on him right now, and in terms of like a defensive player, he's not ready to hit in the bigs yet.
No,
that's a ton of pressure to have on a kid who, if this team is staying the way it is, this is still a team that's going to fight for a playoff spot, and that's a ton of expectations to have on this kid for that. Really. They talked some noise about Sheldon Noisy taking some reps at short, who looked pretty solid, but again, same thing. Kemp and Pinder, I think they're more likely going to be at second than at short. I think that
I think one of them
historically have both been shortstops.
Yeah, but I think
it's spring training.
One of them's got to be at short. Yeah, the position's definitely open at spring training. I would assume that Pinder wins that job, though. He's the best defensive infielder we have left on the roster, middle infielder.
Yeah. The Smile Machine might get some reps right now at short, but
maybe
I think that's the reason this hurts the most is we were two wins away from going to an LCS. The team last year was, I thought, despite the bumps in the road they had in the last half of the season with Chappie getting hurt and Puck never making it up to the majors and just kind of some inconsistency with the rotation, it was still a pretty good team. Like we were both pretty high. Like, damn, if they can somehow bring back Marcus and Stella and just keep the same team here, like, dude, this is a fucking really good team still. Like, I think there's a good chance they can still compete for the ALCS and maybe go to a World Series. But it's like now it's like, look, Marcus. I think it hurts harder because like he was not a good player 5 years ago. And this is something when we had Jessica Kleinschmidt on here, he was not a good defensive player at all.
Yeah.
But he worked his ass off. And that's something that I think we've all really loved about him is that dude busted his ass to become the player he is today, where he's a top 3 finalists and AL MVP. He was a leader in the clubhouse. That's why when you're saying like Giants fans, you'll replace him, or people tell him replace him, dude, you can't replace that.
Yeah.
You can't replace that overnight. Like, it's so much. And we've talked about the weight of having to put on Olsen and Chappie's bats right now. Well, now they're going to have to do that with the veteran shit as well. Mark Hanna's, I think, the longest term Oakland A, but it's him, I think KD, and then Chappie and Ollie.
Him and Marcus.
It's like that's a ton of weight to put on these guys.
Him and Marcus, and him and I think just Marcus came the same year. Canna and Marcus.
And then Stella, he wasn't a great defender.
He was
one of my buddies,
defender.
Steve Contos.
He wasn't terrible, but
he was good enough, because there were some times where a runner was able to beat out his throw to first because he didn't have the strongest arm, but that's why you're playing at short, or playing at, that's why you're playing at second. Shout out to Jed Lowry with his arm. But god damn, I think anybody would have that consistency of just the patience at the top of the lineup, and being like having such a low strike rate. Like, every team would take that, and that's what just makes it hard. We're gonna find guys who excuse me, can at least like either platoon to fill that war that those guys are gonna leave behind. I'm sure there's gonna be guys who probably be just as good defensively. It's like you're taking out 2 strong veteran players at the top of the lineup who've been around for years, and you're going to replace them for a team that, if they would have stayed, like, this is a World Series contender, and now you're going to put either a veteran on a 1-year, like $500,000 deal, or like an unproven, like, minor leaguer.
I mean, you're taking away our leadoff and our number 2 hitter. So it's like not 2 important hitters, like two very important hitters.
That's why it's harder. That's why I think this is worse than those other years, because it's like, sure, like, we had somebody that's a plug in to put in there. We had some preparation for that exit. It's just like we knew this was coming, and there was no preemptive plans to get ready for it.
No, it's like John Fisher showed up to the stadium this morning, and Billy goes in, and Dave Force goes in his office and be like, "Hey, Marcus just got an offer from the Blue Jays for 18 mil. So can we match that?" And he's just like, "You know what? I think we're gonna move on." And just like springs it on him after telling him for weeks, like, "Yeah, we're gonna make it work. Whatever we got to do to make it work." It's just like, what? This is like it's like schizophrenia. Like, it's just so hot and cold. And I want to touch on something that I said earlier to a Giants fan who was harassing me. Once in a generation player. That is not, and I think that phrase has so much that is involved in the definition of that phrase. And I want to clarify to what that is. He is a great, probably the best shortstop we've had since Miguel Tejada, who, was involved with steroids. So you can think what you want about him, but I would say probably top 3 best shortstops in the history of Oakland A's. He great hitter, had an MVP season, caliber season a couple years ago. But I'm not just referencing like what he does on the field. It's what he does off the field as well, and what he means to that team. And we already talked about him being a leader in the clubhouse, being the captain. I think Mark Hanna said in a post-game interview after their loss, he's our captain. A homegrown kid from the East Bay playing for his team he grew up rooting for. What it means for kids in East Oakland, with a sport that's dying in the inner city, like completely dying, and what it means to see kids in what it means to see as a kid in East Oakland playing a position that not many people who look like that play that position and are from our country at least, and seeing someone that looks like them and be like, hey, I could be that person one day. What he did in the community, in terms of building baseball programs in the East Bay, I mean, it goes for miles and miles. The impact, what it means to have a black person as the face of a franchise that has such a heavy minority influence in it. And I know I'm playing like a lot of the race cards, but it's true. Like, I don't know what else to say. And I'm sorry, Giants fans, that you can't wrap your head around it because you have had nothing but boring white guys represent your team for as long as I can remember. And you don't know what it's like to see something like that. And a lot of your fan base is boring, rich white guys. So I'm sure that feels very relatable to you. But as someone who has grew up in a minority, it feels it means a lot as a kid to see someone in that position be that good for your team. That's all I'm going to say. And I know I'm not a kid and I didn't grow up with that. I can only assume what other kids are, but I did grow up with Miguel Tejadas and Eric Chavez's, and if we want to jump into football, Charles Woodson's and that stuff. So it does mean something. I can relate to it.
No, dude, absolutely. Well, it's funny that you say your lifetime of boring white guys. It's not like they had Barry Bonds,
a dick, an asshole. Great.
There's pussies, there's dicks, and then there's assholes.
And he's all three of them.
No, honestly, you kind of hit on the point. I think just the cultural importance of just having somebody like him from Oakland, and the A's have a fantastic history when it comes to the homegrown players or players from Oakland who've built a legacy, for the A's in Oakland. Ricky Henderson, Dave Stewart, Marcus is now a part of that list. It's fantastic just to see that stuff. Like, it's cool, and not like, what's the phrase? Like, it's cool just to see one of us made it kind of thing. Not necessarily us, but just somebody like somebody who comes from a disadvantaged community, like a lot of these guys had to deal with in Oakland. So it's a lot deeper. And I'm glad you brought that up because it means more than baseball. And it's going to be weird. He's been in this he was for 5 years, man. And 5 years in Oakland's a lifetime. So it's going to be really weird to not see him there. But to quote a former Oakland great, Mark McGuire, I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to talk about the future. So what's next? We've already talked about some of the potential in-house options. If also things kind of fucked up today, we already mentioned it earlier. Jordan Simmons, who could have been a potential guy to fill at that spot, he ended up taking a 1-year, $10.5 million deal with the Twins. Freddie Galvez took a 1-year, $1.5 million deal with the Orioles. And that was pretty much the two main shortstop signings that happened. If you want to look at just traditional shortstop, who's left in the market that could potentially fill that position, Didi Gregorius is out there. No, not going to happen. He's going to be out of budget, especially if they're not paying $10 million for Simmons. Chris Owings, who was last with the Rockies. He was kind of a more of a utility guy that could be an option. Somebody that I think is pretty intriguing, though, that I would like to see them at least kick the tires on, see what could work, is Jonathan Villar. Jonathan Villar was last with the Blue Jays. He had a 1-year, $8 million deal. Pretty okay year last year, or disappointing year. He batted .232, 2 home runs, 15 RBIs. I think we can kind of season, though. Yeah, exactly. We can kind of sponge that stuff. That's our options. And if we want to kind of think a little outside the box, see if there's any guys
VR
who could
plays. Oh, he just played a little shortstop. I thought he was a second.
Yeah, he plays short. A lot of these guys, there's no. Okay, let me phrase this. As of right now, there's no traditional everyday shortstops available
except for Didi.
Yeah, and they're not going to be able to pay him.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much going to have to either find somebody who has played enough short like a VR, or somebody who has had experience like a Asdrubal Cabrera, who could fill in at shortstop. And he had a decent year with the Nats last year. Jake Lamb actually looked pretty decent for this time. I don't know if they're going to be able to get him to short. I don't know if he's ready there. And plus, I don't think the team is willing to move Chappie off of third to have him take short. And then Brad Miller, a former St. Louis Cardinal, that could be an option. There's a bunch of options for second too, but realistically, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're just going to go utility and then kind of see where we're at halfway through the season.
So let me ask you this question, Julio. Do you trust any of those guys over the guys we have in-house? Do any of those guys move the needle for you where you're like, yeah, he's probably better than Matt Chapman or Nick Allen? Or not Matt Chapman, sorry, Chad Pinder or Nick Allen? Because none of them do for me. Not even Didi. Didi's had a rough couple of years. I don't think I would want to spend the money on him.
If anybody can do it, if anybody that moves the needle a little bit, it's VR.
Okay.
Because he's been a major leaguer since 13.
Mm-hmm.
He's had some pretty decent years. He's had some pretty good years, really, when he was with Baltimore. I think he's pretty consistent in terms of like stability. I just saw a stat. He was one of only 5 players to play in all 162 games in 2019. You know who else was on that list?
I actually
Marcus
remember that.
Semien.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think plus I think he's going to be cheap. Last year he had a 1 year deal with the Jays for $8 million. Because we know at this point, seeing how this is all going down, Nick Allen's the future. But if you want to still be a competitive team and still find a way to get into a playoff spot and potentially push for it, then he's your best. To me, he's the best option. I like Nick Allen. I think he's going to be great in the future. I've liked what I've seen from Noisy. But if at short that is, but like if you want to win, if tomorrow, season starts tomorrow, game 1, who would you rather have to win that game right now? And right now, to me, I think it's somebody like VR. He doesn't have the best glove.
Yeah.
I think, but the good thing about having Chappie at third is you're going to have somebody who can kind of help with a shortstop who doesn't have the greatest of range, and you can probably teach him to be a little bit better.
And you're going to have help from Olsen over at first to bail you out.
Yeah, exactly. That's the fucking benefit of Matt Olsen. It's like that dude's going to be there to bail you out for anything that goes down. And his bat, we've seen the pass can be electric at times. So to me, I think that's the best option. I haven't seen any trade rumors. And I don't really know who's available at this point, that shortstop. But if he had to win a game tomorrow, I think he's the best option.
Yeah, I don't trust any of those options over Chad Pinder.
I just don't think he's not a shortstop, man. I mean, his whole career, he can play short.
He played. He did a hell of a job.
He
did a hell of a job in shortstop in those first 2 playoff rounds.
Playing shortstop isn't that hard. Tell him, Wash.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know why you don't see him as a shortstop. I mean, he came up in the league. He came up in our farm system as a shortstop. Like they moved him to outfield because they saw that he was athletic and had an arm. So it's like literally, he was in our farm system. I remember seeing him listed as a shortstop.
Yeah, I think it's just he's got the arm, and I'm sure he'll be. He's probably the best option outside Nick Allen defensively. It's just I think it's just those fears of what he'll do. Kind of the not necessarily. I think he would be a pretty sustainable guy over a full 162, not like a part-time player. We saw what Mark Canna turned into. Mm-hmm. I think it's just those kind of fears where it's like, we're really about to waste one more year of Olsen and Chapman because we can't have a sustainable shortstop. And that's why
VR moves the needle.
Because at least his bat, at least I know his bat will be decent. He'll at least probably get 15 to 20 home runs. He'll probably, I know he's got some speed on the bags as well. So it's like, that's why I'm like, I feel a little more better about it. Is it a huge advantage over those two? No, but I think he's got a little bit more advantage of it.
I think I'd rather go with Pinder, and then at second, I would have Nick Allen and Sheldon Noyes duke it out in spring training to see who wins.
So here's the thing.
I like Tony Kemp as the utility guy and replacing that Chad Pinder role as like the regular utility guy who can play everywhere on the field and give anybody rest. So if we let those guys duke it out in spring training and then kind of like platoon it a little bit throughout the season, I think that's the best option. And those guys can develop a little bit, and we can also see what they got. They both bring different aspects of hitting to the team. Nick Allen is a contact guy who's got some speed, and Sheldon Noyes is a power guy. He hits the fuck out of the ball and bombs it out of the park. So that way you get a little bit of yin and yang in that aspect, and then you're a little bit more well-rounded with Chad Pinder there. I don't know.
So I'm glad, like, actually, I think it'd be I think they'd be more flexible if they can just roll with one of these guys as a potential full-timer shortstop, because the second base market's actually a lot better than the shortstop market.
So give it to me.
Yeah. So one name that a lot of people in A's Twitter have been clamoring for is Colton Wong. He's probably going to be out of the price range, but like the dude is a potential Gold Glover at second, and
he'll want a long-term deal probably. Although a lot of guys aren't getting him, so maybe they can figure one out. Who knows?
Somebody that I think, if I remember right, during the trade deadline last year, Jonathan Scope. I thought he would have been fucking awesome instead of Tommy La Stella. Getting him from Detroit, that didn't pan out, but he's currently a free agent. Let's see how that goes.
He's kind of unreliable with his bat, though, man. He's so streaky.
Dude, he hit, again, sample size, 278, 8 home runs, 23 RBIs.
A streaky 60 games to get those 278. Whatever.
We have, Jason Kipnis. There are some rumors last offseason. He actually had a pretty okay, again, 60-game schedule, pretty okay year with the Cubs. 237, 3 home runs, 16 RBIs. We also have D. Strange Gordon, who...
Oh, interesting.
The speed's there. He hit 200, but I think that a really great veteran presence. Yeah, he's never been. Well, he had a batting title, but juicing. But I think he'd be a really good veteran presence. A lot of enthusiasm in the locker room, and a couple old friends of ours. We've got one, Eric Sogard, and 2, Jed Lowry. I don't think these guys have it anymore. But
Jed Lowry, he's having trouble staying on the field ever since he left the A's. That's the reason why the Mets have moved on from him and gone all in on what's his face? I'm totally blanking on his name now. My boy. Anyway, I mean,
they're better options.
Realistically, I don't know if outside, especially after seeing they can't even match $18 million. I don't think that's a reality that we're gonna live in. But I know you. So you went around and talked to, or at least tried to talk to, a couple of our friends and friends of the pod about this, just to get their reaction. How did that go?
Depressing. No, but I got a good friend of the show, Xavier Bejarano. He jumped on a little, I want to say beginning of December, November on the show and kind of talked with us. He was able to give us a good 5 minutes of talking about his thoughts about everything that's happened. And so here it is. All right, I'm joined by our good friend of the show, Oakland native, diehard A's fan, Xavier. Welcome back. I wish we were here for better circumstances, man. But first and foremost, how you feeling? How you feeling about the news of the day?
Not very good, man. But I mean, it feels like honestly an open wound. that just got ripped open because if you think about it, we've been enduring this type of pain since as long as I can remember. And going back to the early 2000s, but Hudson getting traded or not. Yeah, he did get traded. Older getting traded as well. There goes the big three. And then it happens again in 06 and then again down the road and again and again and again. So, I mean, you never get over it. I mean, it happens so many times that you've seen and you experience the pain, but you never get over it. It's, like an open wound seeing a fan favorite go. Fan favorites.
I'm sure Chris and I are going to talk about it, but it reminds me a lot of 04 because that was the worst trip to Disneyland I ever had because I remember that we got in like a Thursday, it was in December, it's Christmas time, and on the ESPN Zone ticker tape, it just said the Oakland Athletics trade Mark Mulder to the St. Louis Cardinals. And then like that same weekend was the Tim Hudson trade. So this is pretty similar because it's like Semien and Stella on the same day. Like our mid infield's gone. But like you kind of already talked about a little bit, like how would you compare it to like 14 with Brandon Moss and Josh Donaldson and all those guys getting traded, and then you already highlight like 2006 when Frank Thomas just had that 1 year deal, and then Barry Zito left in the offseason. Like, how would you compare it to those years?
So, I mean, I can remember me in 14 being pretty bummed. I can't remember exactly how bummed I was, though, but definitely I was bummed when we traded Donaldson away. If you look back on the trade, it hasn't panned out, but, it's another topic. But, yeah, I was pretty bummed that day, and not just that day, but for the whole offseason and that whole year. I mean, he won MVP in 15, so, I mean, that made it sting even more. But yeah, today, I mean, just seeing Semien sign with the Blue Jays, I mean, overall happy for him. I mean, we've seen him grow from a awful trade piece to, I mean, now he's been playing pretty much the best ball of his life the last couple of years, and just to see him develop and go through the ups and downs, homegrown. Went to college the next town over. Been with the team the past 6 years, playing his home team pretty much. It's every childhood, every child's, dream of playing baseball for their number one team. And to see him sign with somebody else, I mean, it hurts. But, overall, we're happy for him. So, I mean, the best now we can do is just sit back and root for him like we have so many times before. So
yeah, it could have been worse. I think it could, like, if he would have gone to like the Angels or the Giants or the Dodgers,
yeah,
that would have hurt a lot more than seeing Toronto, who, like obviously outside of the Donaldson trade and then those early ALCS matchups like in the 90s, we don't really have a history of beef with them. So that's cool. Like, and Toronto's a pretty young, exciting team. He gets a 1 year deal and hopefully he gets paid again. But we were texting about this earlier. Hey, maybe John Fisher sells the team this year and they bring back Marcus as a free agent and long term. Who knows? That's wishful thinking.
That is, man. I think you have a better chance of hitting the lotto. Because until or if that stadium situation falls through, then I can see him selling the team. But with that still on the table and that possibility, I don't think he will. I think the guy is just in it to make a buck. He's worth how many billions of dollars? But yet, you don't want to invest in the team. Well, it's more than what we got. So, I mean, that's enough to invest in the team, in my opinion.
So, sorry. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say that, it's a shame. It really is a shame. I mean, we love the team so much. We want to see them good. But the only way to do that is to spend money. It takes money to make money. And, he's just in it to make money. So it's all the same.
Now, we have a pretty significant gap up the middle of the A's offense. what would you think is probably where they're going to go from here? There's some dudes in-house that they've been looking out. Sheldon Noisy has played some short. Obviously, Chad Pinder, I don't think he's an everyday shortstop, but he can at least play some second. And then Vismael Machine had some days where he played short, covering for Marcus when he was out. If you want to hear a couple free agent options that maybe they can try to go after, Jonathan VR is still out there. He made $8 million last year with the Jays. And then a couple other names who played some third but could potentially switch over to short. You got Asdrubal Cabrera. Jake Lamb was pretty decent. I don't know if he'll switch to third. Brad Miller with the Cardinals, but who knows, man? Like hearing that stuff, like what do you think is not even the best? I can't even say the best option anymore. It's more what's the most logical, knowing how this team plays.
I think they're going to go out and get a veteran middle infielder, whether it be VR or Asdrubal Cabrera, and probably give more reps to Machine. Honestly, I know they talked about moving Chapman over to short, but I don't think that's plausible for in the future, especially with his hip problem. So I think they're just going to go out there and get a middle infielder, a veteran at that, and then play with what we got. Honestly,
yeah, it's a test. I wouldn't be upset if any of those guys were the guys they landed, but realistically, I think it's just going to be a platoon at short of Machine and Noisy, and then Pinder at second. I don't know. I know we talked like, oh, Eric Sogard's a free agent per year. Like, no,
I don't want to see him back. I don't want to see him back.
All right. Well, last but not least, the floor is yours. What do you got to say to John Fisher, man?
Man, it's time for you to sell the team. Us A's fans are tired of you. We don't even know what you look like, but it's time for you to sell the team to somebody who really cares about the game in Oakland. That's all I got to say. That's my message. I hope he hears it.
Short and sweet. I love that you had that in Oakland at the end.
Yeah, so that's right. Here.
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining, Xavier. We got to bring you back on brighter times, but let's go Oakland, man. Thanks for hanging out.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
All right. Well, it's about what I expected from Xavier.
Even though really funny story. You remember the moments when shit went down. So we recorded this on the side, but I'll explain the story to you too, wherever we have this. The weekend that Mulder and Hudson got traded, that was 2004. I was at Disneyland, and that was the worst Disneyland trip I ever had. Yeah, because who
would have thought Julio could ever have a bad time at Disneyland?
I know, right? But we were walking down downtown Disney, and at the ESPN zone is right there. You know how they have the ticker right there?
Yeah.
Or ESPN zone's closed now, but they have the ticker running. And
no way. Is it really?
Oh, yeah. It's been closed for a couple years.
Oh, dude. I watched the 2015 finals there with my parents once.
It's overrated.
I had fun. I had a blast.
Yeah, but you have to pay anytime. Besides the point. But I saw on that ticker, it says Mark Mulder traded to the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
That's how we used to find out.
On a ticker, too. That's the worst way to find out.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah.
So now it's time for the real venting session. Yeah.
Is it?
It's time to talk about the real problem of the Oakland Athletics.
Oh, John Fisher. I am just very confused on what exactly his ultimate goal is when he decided to purchase the A's. What did you think you were going to get out of it, and what was your goal? Because if your goal was to make money, then you're not a good businessman, because I think business shows that owning a sports franchise is not exactly a cash cow, for lack of a better word. You're not just going to come out crazy with revenue all the time. I think a big reason why rich people buy sports teams is to show off to their rich friends that they own a sports team. But I don't think you're showing off very much when you're the laughing stock of the league. It's just I can't wrap my head around him. And if you are indeed struggling financially, which is probably the excuse that he's going to use, from your businesses failing from the pandemic, then maybe, it's a great way to reap some of that losses back. Sell your sports franchise. I mean, like, he's going to try and pull the bullshit and think that we're all stupid and not know. But, like, I don't know. And also, like, why would you want to own a franchise and cater to people who all fucking hate you? Like, that doesn't sound like a very rewarding venture to me.
So here's the thing. So John Fisher, and for those of you who don't know, where did John Fisher's wealth come from? John Fisher his parents founded Gap clothing, and it's also includes Old Navy. So the what's the model, like the fast food clothing retail? I can't remember the exact name. His family was more or less the founders of it, so that made him very wealthy. He's also the founding partner of an investment firm, Samson Partners, and sits on the board of the Silicon Schools Fund. Now, obviously, over the last year, hasn't been great. A lot of people lost a lot of money, including a lot of the people at the top. This is coming from Forbes, where he is currently ranked the 53rd richest person in the world. Right now, so October of 2019, he was worth $2.5 billion, which, okay.
It's one of the richest owners in the league.
Yep. He's always been in the top 5. And then April 2020, obviously COVID was ransacking throughout the year, or ransacking the globe, really. He actually lost some money. His net worth dropped down to $2.1 billion. But guess what, Chris? Just like every other billionaire in the world, he made money. And his net worth as of September 2020 is $2.4 billion. So sure, he lost $0.1 billion during that time. But don't fucking cry foul about not having money, dude. Mm-hmm. Don't call me. Okay. And this isn't just a A's problem. This is a Major League Baseball problem. The A's payroll right now, as of 2021 season going into it, is $64 million, which is $43 million less than league average of $107 million. The team that's just at the average is the Twins, $97 million, and they actually spend money. They spend you can show, like, look, Hyun-Jin Ryu was a top 3 finalist for Cy Young. Nelson Cruz, he's still a free agent, but he's been awesome. They just got the Jonathan Simmons.
Josh Donaldson, they signed him to a big deal last year.
Yeah, like Josh Donaldson, they're not at the average, but look what that money can do. Look what you can do with that money. When it's not a lot, you're still below the average, and you're still a really competitive team and all that. Right now, the lowest team payroll if opening day were to start right now is Cleveland. $28 million.
That's insane, dude. That's wild. When you told me that earlier today, I just could not wrap my head around that.
Next up, Pittsburgh, $30 million. That should be fucking illegal. That is not like, you're not putting a competitive team on the field if you're going to. Sure, the Rays, $41 million. They made it to a World Series. But how often does that happen? That is not okay. This is not okay for any sport.
That's labor issues. Like, it's simple as that. Like if a company lays off their employees and the remaining employees, they decide to just pay a minimum wage because they're having losses. I mean, that would be all over the news and they'd be shamed by everybody. But in professional sports, it's allowed. No, these people are working just like all of us, and they deserve appropriate wage for the talent that they put on the field and the entertainment that they bring to people and the money that they bring in. This is, I tweeted this earlier. This is an example of a million issues that the league has right now, and they are too either stupid or just stubborn to try and fix, and they try and cry or go and cry about how their league isn't doing well, and they don't understand why. Well, I mean, the evidence is right in front of them. So the CBA is up next year. The main source of this deal from the players' side needs to be a negotiation, just like the NBA, where there's a minimum salary that you have to have. Otherwise, you get taxed by the league. That absolutely needs to be in there. And I would be willing to give up the following season, watching as a fan, for them to make sure that is in the negotiation, because I am tired of watching this product on the field as a result of that.
Here's the bottom 10 teams in terms of payroll. Arizona, all right, Milwaukee, Texas, Detroit, Oakland, Seattle, Baltimore, Miami, Tampa, Pittsburgh, Cleveland. And what did all those teams, Cleveland had some success, the Rays, obviously, the Marlins finally did something this last year. The A's are pretty consistent, but it's like Arizona's been bad for a while. Brewers consistent, but guess what? They're trying to send off their best player in Josh Hader now. Mm-hmm. Texas, bad. Detroit, bad. Seattle, bad. Baltimore, bad. Like, you get the point, man.
Yeah.
How are you going to create a sustainable business where you're going to, because look how much better the league gets if it's balanced.
Mm-hmm.
The Cleveland Browns, dude, what's one of the highlights of football this year? Cleveland Browns going to playoffs after all these years. The Buffalo Bills in an AFC title game after all these years. That shit was huge in football, because it's like, these are teams we used to rag on. Like, imagine if you had a competitive payroll, say, hey, this is what you have to spend, and we see like a Pittsburgh in the NLCS tomorrow, like, that'd be awesome. That'd be so cool. Mm-hmm. Like Baltimore, we grew up with some really, really great Baltimore teams in the 90s, and we had a little blip of that in the early 2010s, and it's just like, but they don't give a fuck.
The highest rated World Series in the history of television was when two teams who hadn't made the World Series in years made it to the World Series, in the Indians and the Cubs. I think that says a lot right there. Also, I know you're not a college football fan, Julio, but did you happen to see the ratings of the college football national championship this year?
No, but I'm gonna say it's low.
It's down by a massive margin, and a big reason why they did a poll on it is because America is tired of seeing the same four teams battle it out every single year, and ultimately,
I don't care about college football because of that.
Or ultimately Alabama or Clemson win it. So it's just like, you're losing fan base from so many places around the country. You're only catering to one, which is basically the South. I mean, it basically is the South. It's Clemson, which is in South Carolina. It's Alabama, which is in Alabama, obviously. It's Oklahoma, which is in Oklahoma, obviously, and
Ohio State,
which is in. I mean, that's not the South.
The state of Ohio.
Yeah, but still, it's just like you're catering. You're gonna lose people that way. And look at the NBA. I mean, one team kind of dominates the entire regular season and typically wins a championship, but it does feel like, for more or less, that it's a revolving door that changes pretty regularly.
I mean, like, if you look at like Minnesota, who, sure, they're not a good franchise, but they're trying. Like, dude, they got deep D'Angelo Russell. They had a number one pick, Anthony Edwards. Like,
and they have stars because they have to pay their stars, otherwise their owners get taxed for not doing the minimum payroll. So
like, shit,
it
dude,
kind of balances that shit out, I guess.
Gordon Hayward just signed a max with Charlotte. Like, why would you go play in Charlotte? Because you got a max. Like, dude, that's healthy. That's healthy for the league. And it's just so fucking frustrating when I just see these teams who, like, historically, Baltimore and Pittsburgh are just fucking titans in baseball. Mm-hmm. The A's are titans in baseball. And it's just like, because of how fucked up this league is ran now, there's nothing to show for it, man. Like, cool, they got a nice stadium in these places, That doesn't mean they're gonna have there's no competitive product there.
How come the phrase small market is more or less only used in baseball?
It's a stupid term.
Yeah.
Like small market Oakland. Oakland's not a small market. Get the hell out of here with that. Whoever tries to throw that out here.
People argue like, well, they share it with the Giants, so it gives them like a smaller portion. Well, I mean, the Raiders shared it with the Niners for years, but the Raiders never had a small market issue. I guess you could make the argument football is more popular, but people still love baseball. Is still our I mean, maybe not anymore, but it was our greatest pastime. You can still get people out to watch baseball games.
So you just remind me of something because you said the Raiders. And I thought about the Hall of Fame news today for baseball, which is like nobody's getting in. But that's another thing that I think
we'll save that for later in the week.
And NFL Hall of Fame is going to be announced later in the month. Yeah. And Charles Woodson, one of our favorite players ever on the Raiders, he's in. He's going to get locked in. There's no way he's probably going to get in on his first ballot. Think about what you're losing as an organization and as baseball when you let players walk. So what I'm trying to say is, Chris, I don't know the next time we're ever going to see an Oakland Athletic in the Hall of Fame. I don't know, like if this is sustaining, I don't know the next time we're going to see somebody put on an Oakland, like when you look at their plaque, it's going to have an Oakland Hayes ad on, because the reality is like, dude, they're going to leave. They're going to trade him. They're going to like, we haven't had guys who are potential, but it's like, what?
The only way that happens,
that's all of baseball, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can make the same argument with the NBA, but I think that's what kind of makes the NBA interesting. So it's kind of like hit or miss there. But yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. And speaking of the NBA with player empowerment, it doesn't feel like there's much player empowerment going on in Major League Baseball. I think that's another missing factor. I think Trevor Bauer is the first one to do it. He's doing it successfully, and I hope that changes the league a little bit in that aspect. Maybe baseball players are just boring. Maybe that's really the simple fact of it. But yeah, I mean, the only way that happens, Julio, is if John Fisher sells the team to an owner like a Joe Lacob, and Joe Lacob does a 180, convinces Matt Chapman to stay in free agency when it ultimately hits, and and maybe Matt Olson. I don't know if Matt Olson will be a Hall of Famer, but Chapman's the only one who has the potential. If he convinces him to stay and he stays with his career, that's the only way I can see it happening. As long as John Fisher's the owner, it's not going to happen.
So let's just say, okay, so we're running a little bit longer than we thought, and think just because like this is a really great conversation. It's really like we've kind of hit our boiling point.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do my straight up pitch to John Fisher. John, you've been owning a part of the ownership of the organization since 2005. We've seen some really great years. 2006 is on like out of all the years I've experienced as an A's fan, I still think like 2006 is probably like my favorite season because of like just how everything just worked so well. Of course,
unexpected too.
The unexpectedness of it all, the Bernalini years, their 12 through 14, this latest run, it's been awesome. The A's are really a pinnacle like of success in baseball because it's like shit. Like, look how much they can do with them. That's cool. But this has been happening for 20 years now. In 20 years. And if he's going to cry losing profits over this year, okay, we didn't have any fans in the stadiums last year, and you lost on the revenue from concessions and tickets and all that, I understand. Well, guess what, bud? The odds are, seeing everything that's happening with COVID, seeing how California is, especially in Los Angeles, who does a lot of transportation between here and the Bay Area, is the epicenter of COVID, considering how bad this COVID rollout is or vaccination rollout is happening for not just the elderly, but for everybody. The odds are we're not going to be having a full stadium until end of summer, if not until next year. So guess what? You're still going to lose money this year. So at the end of the day, what's your end game? What's your plan? Do you want to put a competitive team out there and see if you can at least generate from revenue from TV or word of mouth? Because that right now you have to be savvy to make money. And from what he's doing from not retaining a player who's really the captain of the franchise of the organization and somebody who fans really fell in love with last year with Stella. You don't give a fuck, dude. We've known you haven't given a fuck for a long time, but now you're really showing it. You don't give a fuck about making this a better team. You don't care about making this a better situation for the city, and you don't care about the competition of it. You don't fucking care. Like, what do you expect us to do? And as of right now, a few hours ago, there is actually a petition started by some Ace fans. His name is Sebastian Livermore, and this guy's a homie on Twitter. Chris Montana was the one that persons shared it out with us. There's a petition to try to get him out, and I know there's a lot of teams who are doing that, and this is getting some traction. We'll retweet it on our Twitter account. We need fucking change, man. This guy doesn't care. He hasn't cared. He's been the sole owner for 5 years now. And he has nothing to show. What does he have to show for it? A Chris Davis extension that ends up biting us in the ass. And when you're seeing, we've talked about, I can't remember if we talked about this on the show. Ownership matters so much. Look what the Warriors were 10 years ago. Look how pathetic of a franchise was, and Joe Lacob and Peter Greer would take over the marquee franchise in sports. And this actually is a question I've been asking a lot of people, a lot of my friends who are Raiders and A's fans. Who would you rather have as an owner? Would you rather have a Mark Davis who is willing to spend the money into the team, but he has a bad support system to make the right decisions on players, or just back to make the right decision when it comes to the actual org of it all, or somebody like John Fisher, who's a cheap ass, but he has the right people in place to make the right decisions for the team? What would you rather have right now?
I'd rather have Mark Davis 10 times out of 10 because he actually gives a shit. And I actually believe in him, and I think he believes in the franchise, and he believes in like trying to do the right thing, and he's actually trying to make it happen.
You know why? Do you know why too? He fucking, because obviously this is his legacy with his family. He believes in the Raiders. Mm-hmm. And it's that you got to love him for his blind stupidity of it all, because we've seen what this team has been like. If John Fisher gave a fraction of a fuck about the history of this franchise, the history of what they've done for Oakland, and the legacy of all these players, we'd be in good shape. If he just cared a tiny, tiny bit, but he gives zero fucks at all. He gives zero shits about anything with his franchise, and it's pathetic. It is the stupidest thing that any team has to go through this, and it makes it even worse that this is like our team. Chris, so, you have the floor.
I don't want to add anything to that because that was beautiful. That was like Joe Biden's speech when he was elected president. It was just the most perfect thing you could say. I do want to say shout out to Chris, and also shout out to Brian, the Kingpin. He's also a friend of ours on Twitter who's been tweeting it out. If you follow those guys, friends of the pod. Ben Ross just tweeted about 3 minutes ago that the signature is up to 500 and counting. Ben Ross also tweeted it out, so if you're looking for it, you can find it in multiple places. Let me think about how I want to word this. He's writing the knowledge and intelligence of Billy Beane, and it's not okay. And I know a lot of business people are going to listen to this and be like, well, if you have a failing business, you don't keep pouring money into it, hoping that, and doing the same thing, hoping that it'll turn around. You cut costs, and you try and problem solve ways to make the same product, but for cheaper, blah, 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 blah. Well, this is, sure, it's a business, but this is a sports franchise. I think we can all think open-minded and rational about this, and being that a sports franchise is not quite a business. It is a business, sorry, but it's not run the same way as like a retail business or like a I don't know, for lack of better thought. If he continues to do this, we're not, I don't know. It's just making it hard to be an A's fan, man. And we've been preaching about Joe Lacob for a long time, but I think now more than ever, we need him to swoop in and save us before we completely lose our fucking minds, and before Major League Baseball completely loses out on a market that they should be thriving in. So I don't know.
Before we become Padre fans.
Yeah, or Dodger fans. I I just hope to God that Joe or John Fisher picks up the phone and calls the guy across the bay. Says, "Hey Joe, team's up for sale. What do you got?" Because that's the only hope we got right now, man. That's really it. I don't know. I mean, I know Dave Stewart just bought the city's portion of the Coliseum land, so maybe he can force a situation with that stadium to where he can block them from building until Joe Lake or I keep saying Joe Lake, John Fisher makes an intelligent move on how the A's personnel goes. I think that's kind of the only hope we got is maybe Dave Stewart can strong arm him because he's got some power now. Especially with the whole Howard Terminal site not kind of just falling from the wayside every single day more and more. But I don't know what to do. I mean, all we can do is bitch. And I'll probably still watch the team. I'll probably still buy swag. I'm not buying a Marcus.
Honestly, no,
anymore.
don't buy shit. Don't buy shit. Like that. That's
I thought about that today.
The best thing we could. Okay, go ahead.
I thought about that today because remember I said in the past podcast that if Marcus goes, because I wanted to buy a Marcus jersey, I'm going to buy a Murph jersey. I don't know if I'm going to buy a Murph jersey. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking other way around now.
If you want to show that you're pissed with this organization, that you're pissed how it's being ran, don't buy anything right now. Like, don't buy a new hat. Don't buy a new shirt. Don't buy it. If you want to buy something with merch, go support a local business and go buy some green and gold stuff from Oaklandish. Or go on Redbubble and support go to Oaklandish, shout out. Or go on Redbubble, look up Oakland A's gear and buy something from an artist directly. That's redbubble.com. Don't support buying anything from this franchise.
Yeah.
And to show you like that's what we have to do right now. And it's like the odds are we're not going to be at a Coliseum this year. We're not going to be able to spend in there. So we got to hurt them where it hits. Like, just don't buy merch. If you're going to watch the games, I don't know if they get a portion if it comes like MLB TV or bootleg it, man.
They definitely do, yeah. But yeah.
You do what you can to show that like we're
sign that petition.
Sign the petition, big time petition. I don't know if it's going to do anything, but you know what, man? It's a start.
Well, it'll get his eyes on it if it gets enough traction. He'll get his eyes on it and be like, man, these people fucking hate me. Maybe I should like not.
If he didn't realize that already, he's just oblivious. But
I know, but I mean, a lot of billionaires are oblivious. They're surrounded by people who just tell them everything they need. So let me give you guys the URL so you get a little bit more specific of a destination to buy this. It's www.change.org/p/MLB-force-Oakland Athletics. Yeah, there's 1,000 signatures now. Wow. Oh no, this
wait, 1,000?
No, sorry. To get to 1,000, there's 528, 529. So it keeps going up every single minute.
Yeah, it's growing. It's growing. So
that's the best we can do. Billionaires are going to continue to rule the world and get everything they want, and there's nothing to do about it.
So Chris, I started this off with the Yoda quote. So while we're finishing up, I'm going to finish it off with a Star Wars quote from Jin Iso, which is, "Rebellions were built on hope."
They were. That's a good point. We are the rebellion.
Yeah. Rogue One, hell underrated.
All right, folks. Thanks for listening to us, bitch. Hopefully, if you got some perspective from this, and hopefully, we got some perspective as the podcast went on and we vented. And
I feel better. I don't know about you. Our cheap therapy session.
And let's just give a quick shout out to all of our loyal fans who have been listening to us for what will be coming on a year in a couple months. We love you guys and we want to hear from you. We want to interact with you more. So let us know how you feel. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And again, later on the week, we'll come with a little bit more normal, structured one. Talk about all the free agency moves that have happened. I hinted at one, Corey Kluber, earlier in the week. The Schlatter brothers had something to say about that, so maybe we could talk to them about it and give you guys some feedback. And yeah, that's it. All right, Julio. I don't know. Is the typical ending of this podcast appropriate today?
I mean, I'm always going to root for the city of Oakland.
Yeah, we're always for Oakland. So last but
Shout
not
out
least,
to our homegirl in the White House.
yeah,
Now
Flyers.
Oakland in the house. That's right. So yeah, let's go Oakland. It could be worse.
Could be. Hopefully it doesn't. The Town Tailgate is an independently produced podcast. It is written and executive produced by this guy, Chris Madrigal, and my partner in crime, Julio Reynoso. It is sound mixed and edited by yours truly. Social media management and marketing is run by, once again, my partner, Julio Reynoso. And a special thanks and shout out to my brother, Larry Madrigal, for composing and producing our theme song, as well as graphic designing our album cover and artwork. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Please tune in next week. Please subscribe. And last but not least, as we always say, let's go Oakland.